So one of the most influential people that I'm going to speak about today is Jackie Robinson. Jackie Robinson broke the Keller barrier in baseball back in 1947. And what's exciting about that is when you look back, 60, 70 years later and talk about his accomplishments, not just on the field, but what he had to go through in life is what I think makes him so inspirational. So for instance, think about an individual that's so talented, but the people on his team, some of them embraced him, some of them didn't want him anywhere near him. Some of them would ask him to go out to dinner, some wouldn't. Some baseball stadiums he went to, they would boo, they would call him names, they would just treat him horribly. The manager of the Philadelphia Phillies in particular was one that just tried to make his life miserable. But it was his own coach, Leo DeRocha, who said, I would trade many of the guys I have on my team and keep Jackie Robinson. And it's that affirmation of that, not just that athlete, but that person that helps break down some of those walls. So Jackie Robinson was not only a great baseball player, but endured a lot in his life and was an amazing man.
And I learned of a man early on named Vernon Johns, and Vernon Johns was Martin Luther King Jr.'s predecessor, and that he was a traveling preacher who traveled around the South preaching to various churches about independence within the African American community. He basically went through his life preaching independence, and until finally his last permanent church that he was offered and preached at was Dexter Avenue Baptist Church. And after being fired from that pulpit, it shows the end. There's a movie that was written about him. His older daughter actually wrote a book, and they made a movie about him called The Vernon Johns Story. At the end, it shows the deacons of Dexter Avenue Baptist Church talking about how they needed someone younger, someone a little bit more flexible and more conservative in their ways of preaching. The person that they hired after him ended up being Martin Luther King Jr., and that's when the bus boycotts began. So I really love Vernon Johns. I tell everybody that I know about Vernon Johns, and I think that he doesn't get any credit for all the amazing things that he did coming up before Martin Luther King Jr., and I really love him for who he was.
Even before I got to high school, I had a group of friends, and we weren't the best kids in the world. We kind of used to get into a lot of trouble. We used to do things that I wasn't so proud of. I kind of was just walking around like, I do what I want to do when I want to do it. And I had an English professor. His name was Mr. Komori. And Mr. Komori gave me the book when I was in 9th grade. And he said, hey, I want you to read this aside from what we do, as our regular lessons. So at first I thought, I'm not reading this long book. Look how thick it is or whatnot. I'm not reading this book. Is there a movie? So I asked my mom. She found the movie for me. Actually, this is when Blockbuster was still kind of big. So we went to Blockbuster. I watched the movie. And I was like, oh, all right, this movie's kind of dope. It's okay. I'll read the book. I'll give it a chance. Because I always was told, books are way better than movies. So as I started reading the book, I realized Malcolm X had a lot of things in common with myself. When he was in school, he was very smart. And one of the things that happened to him is one day he was in class and his teacher was asking to him, he's asking the class, well, what do you want to do when you become older? Some people were saying, hey, I want to be a doctor. Some people were saying, I'm going to be a Major League Baseball player. Some people were saying, I'm going to be a lawyer. I'm going to be an architect, so on and so forth. And when they got to Malcolm X, whose name was Malcolm Little, she asked him, well, Malcolm, what do you want to be when you get older? He said, I want to be a lawyer. And his teacher told him, no, I don't think you can be a lawyer. Maybe you'll be better at doing something with your hands, like maybe a carpenter or a brick mason or somebody like that. And he thought to himself, well, why the heck did she say that to me? Well, that very same thing happened to me when I was in the 4th grade. Once you read certain things or when you become in knowledge or in tune with certain things, you kind of wake up. And when I read his book, I actually woke up. That was the turning point in my life. I got a lot more focused. I started reading. I started diving even more into the book and doing even more research. And I started realizing that he was a proponent for African Americans having their own rights and doing what they're supposed to do, but also for unity. And you know how you guys, when we come in here a lot, and remember at the beginning of the semester I said, we're a family. I love you all like my little brothers and sisters. Well, that was kind of some of the things that Malcolm X believed as well. He believed that people should be unified and we should work together to accomplish certain goals. His big thing was for individuals to not only be leaders, but to make sure that people are unified. And for myself, that's one of the biggest things and one of the biggest things that I can do in my life. I like unifying people. I like bringing people together, but I also like trying to help people achieve their goals collectively. Because I firmly believe that if we work collectively, then we can actually change our surroundings.